If you're an intended parent and you saw that Oklahoma headline this week about a 14-year-old being used as a surrogate, I need you to hear something right now. That is not surrogacy. It's not even in the same zip code as surrogacy. And the fact that major news outlets are using that word casually, repeatedly, without context, could directly affect your own journey, your family's perception of what you're doing, and even the laws that govern this process. So let me explain exactly what happened, why every single part of it fails the definition of surrogacy, and why you should care. I have been running a surrogacy agency for over 16 years. I've worked with hundreds of families through this process. I'm a former surrogate myself, so I have lived this from the inside. And I currently serve as the president of the Society for Ethics in Egg Donation and Surrogacy, which means I have spent a lot of time in rooms with the attorneys, the doctors, the psychologists, the agencies, the surrogates, and the intended parents who make this process work the right way. So when a story like this breaks and the word surrogacy gets slapped on the headline, I don't just have an opinion about it. I know exactly what surrogacy is. I know what it requires, and I know what it isn't. And what happened in Oklahoma? It isn't surrogacy, not by any definition that exists. Let me show you why, and why this matters to you if you are anywhere in your own surrogacy. Let me walk you through the facts as we know them. Back in December, Oklahoma City police responded to a report of a possible sexual assault involving a 14-year-old girl at an apartment complex. When the authorities got involved, they found out the girl was pregnant with twins. The possible father? Her mother's 36-year-old boyfriend. The mother told police that her daughter desperately wanted additional siblings, and that she, the mother, wanted children with her boyfriend, but couldn't have them because her tubes were tied. She denied allowing her boyfriend to physically impregnate her daughter, and police obtained a search warrant to collect DNA from the boyfriend to determine paternity. The teenager, who's now 15, has been placed in protective custody and is due to give birth soon. The mother reportedly fled to California. The boyfriend's whereabouts? They're unknown, and no criminal charges have been filed yet. Now, when I first read the details of this case, my reaction was probably the same one you're having right now. This is horrifying. And the fact that anyone, the mother, the media, anyone, attached the word surrogacy to this made it even worse. Because what I just described to you is alleged child abuse. Full stop. It is not surrogacy. And I want to show you exactly why. Because once you see the real criteria, this falls apart completely. Let me walk you through what legitimate surrogacy actually requires. And you'll see in about 60 seconds why this case doesn't meet a single one. Let's start with the most basic requirement. A gestational surrogate must have already had at least one child of her own. That is not a preference, and that's not a guideline that someone can waive. Every reputable agency, every fertility clinic, every set of professional standards in this industry requires it. The reason is straightforward. Pregnancy is a serious medical undertaking, and a surrogate needs to have demonstrated that she can carry a pregnancy safely and that she understands from real lived experience what she's agreeing to. This girl is 14, 15. She has never had a child. She is a child. And that leads directly into something even more fundamental: consent. In surrogacy, a surrogate enters into a legal contract. She goes through psychological screening with a licensed mental health professional. She goes through medical evaluations at a fertility clinic. She works with her own independent attorney, separate from the intended parent's attorney, who reviews every detail of the agreement and makes sure her rights are protected. She is a legal adult making an informed, voluntary decision with full understanding of what she's doing and why. A 14-year-old cannot consent, not legally, not ethically, and not in any framework that exists. The very concept of a 14-year-old agreeing to carry a pregnancy for someone else isn't a gray area. It's an impossibility. But here is where it gets really uncomfortable. And honestly, this is the detail that should end every single debate about whether this was surrogacy. What makes surrogacy legitimate isn't just one thing. It's the entire process. It's the screening. It's the legal framework. It's the informed voluntary consent of a legal adult. It's the psychological evaluation. It's the medical clearance. It's the independent legal representation. It's all of these things working together to protect everyone involved: the surrogate, the intended parents, and the child. None of that happened here. None of it. There was no screening of any kind. There was no psychological evaluation. There was no medical clearance. There was no attorney representing this girl's interests. There was no legal contract. There was no court order. And most fundamentally, there was no legal adult capable of giving informed consent. Every single safeguard that defines surrogacy and separates it from exploitation was completely absent. Could this girl have become pregnant through artificial insemination? Possibly. But even if she did, that still doesn't make it surrogacy. Because surrogacy isn't defined by how someone becomes pregnant. It's defined by the process that surrounds it, the protections, the consent, the legal structure. The fact that every person involved is a willing, informed, screened adult who chose to be there. Take all of that away, and what you're left with isn't surrogacy. It's something else entirely. And in this case, that something else appears to be a crime against a child. If you're still with me, good, because this next part is the one that actually affects you directly as an intended parent. When news outlets use the word surrogacy to describe what happened in Oklahoma City, it does real damage. And the people it hurts most are the ones least responsible for it, people like you. Surrogacy already faces public misunderstanding. And most people out there have a vague idea of what it is, maybe shaped by a movie or a headline or that one person at a dinner party who had opinions. But when a case like this gets tagged with the word surrogacy, when people scroll past a headline that says 14-year-old used as a surrogate, it feeds into the worst fears and misconceptions. It makes surrogacy sound exploitive. It makes it sound dangerous. It makes it sound like something people should be suspicious of. You know what I hear from intended parents all the time? We finally told our family we're doing surrogacy, and the first thing someone said was, "Isn't that kind of sketchy?" Stories like this are exactly why they think that. And it makes an already vulnerable, already difficult conversation even harder for you. And it doesn't stop at dinner table conversations. Bad headlines lead to bad assumptions. Bad assumptions lead to bad legislation. When a lawmaker who doesn't understand surrogacy sees a headline like that and decides something needs to be done, the laws they write don't protect anyone. They just make it harder for people like you to build your family through a legitimate, ethical, well-regulated process. So let me say this plainly. What happened in Oklahoma, if the allegations are true, is child abuse. Calling it surrogacy gives it a legitimacy it does not deserve, and it drags a process that's built on consent, medicine, ethics, and law through the mud. So what does legitimate surrogacy actually look like? Because the contrast with this case isn't just significant, it is night and day. A gestational surrogate is typically between 21 and 42 years old. She's had at least one successful pregnancy and is parenting her own children. She's gone through an extensive application process, background checks, social vetting, psychological evaluation with a licensed mental health professional, medical evaluation by a reproductive endocrinologist. She has her own independent attorney. She understands the time commitment, the medical procedures, the emotional dimensions of what she's doing. And she's choosing to do it voluntarily with full knowledge and full agency. And here's something a lot of people don't realize. Surrogates aren't doing this out of desperation. The overwhelming majority of gestational carriers are women who genuinely want to help someone become a parent. They've had their own kids, they had healthy pregnancies, and they want to give that opportunity to someone who can't do it on their own. That is not exploitation. That's generosity. And I'll say it one more time because it's the point that matters most in the context of this story. Surrogacy is defined by the process, the screening, the consent, the legal protections, the medical oversight, the fact that every person involved is an informed adult who chose to be there. If none of that exists, and in this case, none of it did, then what you're looking at isn't surrogacy. It doesn't matter what anyone involved called it. The word doesn't belong anywhere near this case. And if you're at the point where you want to really understand how this process works, the screening, the legal steps, the medical timeline, all of it, I put together a free education program called Step into Surrogacy, specifically for intended parents. It walks you through the entire journey, so nothing catches you off guard and you can move forward knowing exactly what to expect. The link is in the bio. Okay, let me bring this home. Here's what I wish the media would focus on. How do we protect children? How do we hold these adults accountable? And how do we make sure the language used in reporting doesn't distort public understanding of a legitimate process that helps real families every single day? Because the surrogacy community, agencies, attorneys, clinics, intended parents, surrogates, mental health care providers, we all condemn what happened in Oklahoma, unanimously and without hesitation. It is not what we do. It is not who we are. So bottom line, what happened in Oklahoma is not surrogacy. It fails every single criterion that defines legitimate surrogacy. And calling that does real harm to a process that is built on consent, medicine, ethics, and law. If you are an intended parent watching this, and you're feeling uneasy because of what you saw in the news, the journey you are on has nothing in common with this story. Not one thing. Share this with anyone who saw that headline and walked away with the wrong idea. The more people who understand the difference, the better it is for everyone, especially you. Drop a comment if this helped clarify things. And remember, you are not doing this alone. Because my whole heart is with surrogacy, my whole heart is also with you. See you next time.